Starting and call our meeting to order here at 6:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to the September 3rd APA board meeting. I hope everyone's doing well. Getting ready for our fall season coming up here. First, we can do a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence, and we'll continue on from there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take a moment of silence here. Thank you. All right, be seated. First thing on the agenda is approve the agenda here. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented tonight?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
You got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next thing, do we have anyone listed for public comments? No public comments? All right, thank you for that. Next thing on the agenda here is approval of the meeting minutes as presented in our board packet from the July 2nd, 2024 board meeting. Have a few minutes to look over that real quick.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Next thing on the agenda here is the approval of the CEO report as presented to us as well. That was on the packet, I believe at the top. I'll give everyone a few minutes to go through that, and then we'll continue on further from there.
I try every month.
All right. If not, for a motion to approve the CEO report September 3rd as presented.
I'll make a motion that we approve the September 24 CEO report as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
All right, you have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have
Go ahead, Ninja.
a couple of questions for you. It says concerned about issues at the high school at the end of school.
Mhm.
What does that mean I guess I'm not aware of what that concern.
So that is part of our executive session this evening, but there was an alleged personnel issue that was found not to be a personnel issue and all of that, but perception of it was an issue, so.
Okay.
So we can defer that to
Let's say as
executive session.
vague
Yeah.
booking
Yeah.
as
No,
that
that's-
sounds,
yeah.
but, yes. That was one of the things that was spread on social media, but we can discuss in executive.
Thank you.
And then what about the changes at the elementary? Is that like staff turnover? Is that like a concern for families, or is that something else?
That was part of it. That was listed in the CEO report, but also this also ties back a lot of it to the May 8th, I believe the date is, board meeting, and what was presented during public comment.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I would like to compliment the CEO in giving an explanation on the computer purchase, which I believe is tied in with our $125,000 or so unspent loan proceeds. That is a very good, clear explanation. I had been a bit puzzled over that. Apparently, what we're saying then is that we were having to, without this replacement insurance, we were having to retire a lot of computers earlier than we would have liked because it was too cost inefficient to repair them. And so then we have to keep buying new ones more often. So that cleared a lot up in my mind. Is there a definite figure on what you talk about the cycle in purchasing computers. Is there one figure of time that would capture that, or is it not quite that simple?
I would say right now it's not quite that simple, because if we're looking at our historic numbers, we did use basically PC-based laptops, and we've now switched to Chrome. And so a PC-based, which I don't actually know what it's called, but that's how it works in my brain, laptop where it has all that functionality with Microsoft, is much more expensive than getting a Chromebook. So typically right now, the Chromebooks that we get are between $350 and $450. But you know, those prices go up and down every day. And so looking at, it would be probably better if you looked at like 90 computers if we're talking about a future cycle. And we do get 30 staff computers every year, just as part of our cycle with that, but they are the actual PC-based computers. So those are, right now they're running about $1,100 for the staff computers. But we need a lot more functionality than Chromebooks can give us.
So it sounds like next year we'll be purchasing another round again.
It is possible that we'll need to do that whole purchase again, like another 90.
Right.
Working with IT to see where we're at on that. We're going to do a check-in in around November to see kind of the health of the machines, how this insurance program has been working for us. And like I said in my report, where it doesn't cover missing chargers, which, to be fair, they would be sending us missing chargers every day. And then it doesn't, if the computer just wanders off, they're not going to cover that. But similar to the past that we've had with like text with fees and things like that, right? If the computer monitor, the screen gets broken, that's like an $80, $85 charge. Kid still needs the computer to do their work and there's activities. So we have to just go ahead and move forward, and if the family can't afford to pay or chooses not to, right? We have nothing other than another $80 that it cost us to repair the screen.
The Chromebooks that you're referring to, does that enable, I have the, like you probably, the old standard box on the desktop. Does the Chrome tablets, can they get on the internet? So they all have internet access either way. They might not need the Microsoft Office suite or something like that, which would jack up the cost. So.
Yeah, so we pay for a Google server and Google licensing. So Google offers a suite of products that's very similar to Microsoft Office. So instead of Excel, they have Google Sheets, or instead of Word, they have Google Docs. And so our kids are using those programs for the most part, and then all of it's web-based. The only challenges we see as a staff, besides some of us are very, very connected to the Microsoft Office products, myself included on that, is that when the Department of Ed gives us certain applications that we have to fill out or reports, you have to have a desktop-based version of Microsoft to be able to submit it. So a lot of schools that switch to full Chrome because it's much more cost-effective, plus it's kind of more of a collaborative platform, they can't do anything.
Can't do that with the staff, though.
Right. Well, they did. Yes.
With Chromebooks.
You lose a lot of it. Now, if it meant getting out of Department of Ed reporting, I would totally be in favor, and I could switch off this Microsoft thing. I'd be fine.
Do the teachers have the laptops, or are they desktops?
Laptops.
Would it be cost effective for the teachers to have desktops in the classrooms?
They move around quite a bit. So, and a lot of them, even though, you know, we frown upon it, a lot of them take them home. So, just works for us right now. Especially when we have our schmancy little TV keyboard things. Stottlemyre is the founder of our APA smart boards. Found a workaround that's about $3,000 cheaper, so.
That's better.
Yes.
We'll take that.
Any other further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next thing on the agenda here is the financial reports.
Okay.
And the reports are here, has been submitted from several months since we didn't meet last month as well, or two.
Right.
So we have quite a bit of reports in front of us here. So
Yeah,
Dave, I
try
don't want you to have to talk your ear off or talk her.
Well, I'll
So if you
try.
wanna go
I'll
ahead and
try to
highlight.
be brief here since we
Yeah.
have 2 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I make one statement?
You
before
sure.
we
You
start?
sure
And good
can.
evening, Bookkeeping Plus. Sorry about that.
I have to leave at
Yes.
6:30 for another appointment, but Andrea and Sandy will still be here, but I just want to make one thing. So one of the things that we changed at year end
Mhm.
is the $500,000 plus that we received for the.
Oh, yes.
So I moved that to unearned.
Yep.
Because, it will then reduce the income for the year, which causes your indicator to look like you're under, because we took that income out, but the average for the 4 years is still over the number, it's like 2.04.
Yeah.
So you're still okay, but I wanted to let you know that's the reason for the swing, because and now we can match income and expenses on the current year's financials, and we're not always making explanations as to why. And CLA said that we can do that as far as for the audit purposes.
So
So I
if the
just wanted to put
auditors
that
are
out there
happy, yeah,
for you.
we're happy. So.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you mentioning that. That was going to come up tonight. I at first thought it might be a typo, because I know a lot of the numbers on that page are manually prepared, and you know what happens when you have manually prepared documents.
Yep.
But
So anyways, I just want to put that out there before you started.
okay, well, I appreciate that. Let's see, are we?
Yeah, sure. I'll turn the floor to you real quick.
Oh.
Are these updated ones than what's in the packet? that you
This
presented
should be
tonight?
the same.
It's the same
I did some
packet.
cut and paste actually. I got tired of writing.
Okay.
So I got my scissors out here on our little cheat sheets here,
Okay.
but
So
this
these are
is,
the
this is from the
condensed.
same package that I emailed out. Unfortunately, didn't get them out in a very timely fashion, but everybody has a copy here in our very thick
Yeah.
board package, and then you have an email with this contained at home, and then this is sort of the highlights, or in some cases, perhaps the lowlights. Okay, we'll start with June. And, okay, we start off, this is sort of our familiar summary table that I put at the head of each of my pre-meeting reviews here, just to focus on the key metrics. And I think it's a little simpler this time. But we, of course, start off with total income less total expense, and then we see we have our net cash income, or in this case, a loss, and ending cash balance. Those are probably our most important key metrics. Now, we start off with what our latest projections are for the year end. And then we proceed to look at the monthly results. And quite often, the changes in our year-end projections from one meeting to the next tie in with what happens during the month. So sometimes there's a bit of redundancy there. So that's why I start with the year-end, because that's really the number that everybody's wanting to know. Now, we have several columns. And the first, of course, is as stated on our big horizontal cash flow statement. And at the end, you have our projected for year end. And then, of course, next to that, what our budget was that the board voted on in May. And then the budget variance. And just for reference purpose, then I did slip in what June's actual results were.
So, net cash loss for the year, and this is, of course, pre-audit, and it's on a cash basis, a negative $137,993. And the budget that we approved, of course, we're constrained to vote on only a balanced budget. So the balanced budget was $11,435. So we did miss that by a wide mark. And June actual, the actual month, had been projected at a slightly lower loss, about $99,000, I believe, and that ended up with $143,182. Now, looking at our ending cash, we ended the year with $792,524. Now, that's a very strong cash number. So that figure is good. It's a little less than what we had budgeted a year ago. And then below that are some of the other items that we pull out of the cash flow statement to track. And we notice that our net health insurance premium expense, after, of course, employee payroll deduction, $476,661, and that was below budget, which is very good. And then, of course, as we all know, we have switched here late in the year, fiscal year, ending in June 30th, 23, to basically we're a self-insured plan in the health insurance marketplace.
Not quite on the self-insured part.
Okay.
So, yes to the marketplace. The self-insured part, we're paying our proportionate premium. Employees are as well, and then it's fully insured through the marketplace. The challenge is that we were in a level funded, so partially self-insured, and so that switch from May to June, which is where that $107,000
right
stop.
Yeah, with Allied, in case there's prior claims that pop up under their regime. Yeah.
So that's where kind of that caveat is, and probably a couple months, then they will pay back. They were supposed to do reconciliation after August to see about any additional.
We may get most of all of it back, if possible.
Theoretically, I would feel we could at least probably get half of it back. They keep $25,000 just for the convenience of it.
Sort of like the renter never gets his deposit, rent deposit back. Yeah, just a rule of thumb. Okay. Well, so we're partially self-insured is maybe a better, or that's not even correct.
Nope, all of our plans are now fully insured. They're just all individualized.
Okay. So we should not ever again make reference to self-insured.
Yes, remove it from our vocabulary.
Okay.
We did not go down that route because that was a lot.
Well, we're going to be learning a lot now about a new form of insurance, I think. This
ICRA, yeah.
But it's promising to save us a lot of money, so that is good. And I think the employees have been happy with it so far.
There has, once we've worked out most of the bugs, there's not been a lot of let's say discussion as far as being a negative part, where some people are still, myself included, still waiting for the other shoe to drop, because my prescriptions right now are $3 a piece pretty much across the board. So I'm like, where's the catch? So if maybe I have to go have actual surgery or something, it might be really expensive. But
and that's where they adjust all of that.
I say cautiously optimistic right now for all the functions that we have. People seem to be okay.
Okay, and then of course we incur a third-party fee, which, if I recall, of course that's in the report I sent out. I think it was $85 per month per employee, and the implied number of employees then with that calculation, I think was about 50 something, between 50 55, which historically is about the number that usually take the APA plan offering.
Yeah, we've not seen a big increase in the number of people taking the plan, but also didn't see a lot of a decrease there too. So it's around our historic numbers. there's a little change each month because of new hires and all those things.
Yes, Kim, I know familiar with all of that process, so very, very tedious. Then also, let's see, substitute expense. We thought 119,000 would do it. We ended up with 133,660. And then I just stuck in there, so we'd have that figure for quick reference. The facilities grant, the unearned revenue as we're calling it, the amount of that you're calling, the total amount was $519,996. I've got that etched permanently in my mind from doing 2 months of reports on this stuff. I can recite that number. You said that for this last school year that apparently 5,500 was actually spent because the amount earned that we took out of June's income and put it on the balance sheet as a short-term liability was $514,356. So,
And Beth perhaps has slept since then as well, but I believe we used that for our emergency tree removal. Does that sound familiar? Sandy?
No, I don't recall what it was for. I mean, we can use it for the emergency tree removal. I thought the emergency tree removal, which, let me look and see. I thought that was paid for in July.
It's possible.
But but then it's still gonna be used for that, but it just wasn't in July.
Yeah, I was just trying to think, because it was around a $5,000 or $6,000 item that looks like it was coded to it, so we can go back and figure it out.
I don't remember what was off the top of my head, but Jill, like, circled it, starred it.
well, and I know in some cases the number is rounded up to an even 520. So at first glance that might be a little bit confusing, but anyhow, we got the general neighborhood of what the amount is. Let's see. Then going down the June year-end results here, we take a look at, we were on a cash basis, which is what our budget starts out, and then we go to the accrual numbers. And on an accrual basis, you'll notice that we also we add to it a depreciation expense. And they're saying that the net income before audit is negative $206,298. And as Beth was talking about earlier, I threw in June's there, and the month of June showed a on an accrual basis a net income loss of $764,000 rounded up, and most of that, or the amount of $514,356, is because we, for reasons we'll discuss here when we enter July, we took that out of income and we put it into unearned revenue. And then as we spend that money and pay the invoices to the contractors this current year, that will be sort of reversed and creep back in. Okay, so let's see. And then I think I also threw in, just for quick reference purposes here, what the monthly results for June were on a cash basis, and we've already repeated that. 143,000 loss cash. The budget was 99,315. Now, I don't want to go into a lot of depth on this, but our debt service coverage ratio, and I talked a lot about this because we track that on a cumulative basis, because the formula uses accrual numbers. And we don't get into the accruals too much because we're interested in tracking the process of our budget that we approved and see how far off how great we are at forecasting. But we did hit a record low of 0.47 times. And of course our required bank and Ball State ratio is 1.25. Now, Beth confirmed to us here, I think before we started the meeting perhaps, most of that is because of the accrual entry we made in June for the $519,000.
That is correct.
So if you take that out of income in the last month of the year,
Yep.
you got a fraction here. You can see exactly why that top number is, or it's going to be so low. And
it'll match up next year when we do, like you say, the income
Yes.
expenses. So when we spend the money, we will put that same revenue in at the same time.
now let me ask this: have we just got, or with the board here, we just got these numbers? Have we discussed or disclosed this to our bankers, to Brad, yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Typically, Brad doesn't want to see these financials. They look at our quarterly financials, but they don't want to see these until they go through the audit.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, he already received the June 30th quarterly, and so in October he'll get.
So if he's read through what we send him, he should know, just like
theory.
us. Yeah. Well, we've done our part then.
We had this once before where it was negative or
Yeah.
below the amount, and I'm happy to have another conversation with the banker as well if they have any questions as to what, as far as understanding, grant inflow. Because a lot of times that's exactly what happens is we received it in May, but we're not using the money until this year.
Yeah, it's one of those
So
timing
it's very
mismatches. Yeah.
explainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I don't interact too much anymore with the bank. You guys do most of the communication there. I know that when we first signed up and took all of our loans with then Main Source, now First Financial, they told us and we promised to them that as soon as we could ascertain that we hadn't met a covenant ratio, and give us some time to make sure we know the facts, that we would let them know. So I think that's always a good idea. Now, they may not really be as interested as we are, but I think we want to do our part to, as soon as bad news, as soon as we know it, whoever else needs to know it will know it. And I don't think there's any reason for panic, but they will have to give us a covenant variance. But they have done that before, and there's a very good reason why. It's a timing mismatch. It's not that just we've gone hog wild on spending.
Yeah, and I've talked to Brad within the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks probably. He was supposed to come up 2 weeks ago, and then had a last minute cancellation. He's supposed to be coming up soon. I keep giving him, here's some available times.
Yeah.
So we'll see when he comes. He and I had already talked about some of the different things, including those loan proceeds that we had.
Yeah, the
remaining.
125,000,
Yeah.
carried over, yep.
He said, you guys have blanket collateral, put it towards the foundation. I'm like, well, thank you, that was great. And so he knows that, but we also, because of them wanting the audited financials, they changed the notification on those, where now it's 180 days, I think, past year end, because it used to be within 30 days past year end, which nobody's financials are audited within the first 30 days. So we've got plenty of time, but he's also very familiar with all of our stuff going on.
That's good. Okay, let's see then. The only thing left with June is the month of June, actual versus budget. Now we have seen that we did have a loss. It was originally 99,000 loss, and then it did bloom into 143. I got tired of typing and writing, and I thought, I did a pretty good job, I think, in that paragraph, so I just did a little cut and paste with my copier machine here. So you can basically read for yourself the details of what happened. As I just said here, budgeted for net cash loss anyhow. And that is not unusual for us we have many months where we have budgeted a net cash loss. That's just part of our operating cycle. And I think we maybe have 4 to 5 big months when we have these big flows of money, grant money coming in, or ADM count money if our enrollment's gone up, let's say, where we do have a big bottom line on the monthly basis. So again, a monthly loss is not necessarily a cause for concern, although we'd like to see none of those. But anyhow, the short explanation is, let's see here. It's a combination of total income dipping a little bit to about 20,000 below budget. And we didn't get any secured safety grant money at all for this last year.
No, the first disbursement came in July, I believe.
Right, so I think we already knew or expected that, no surprise there. But it does cause these unfavorable variances. And then also looked like the literature grant ended up being a little bit below budget too. Let's see, so we had a little bit of dip in the grants, and usually or often that's a timing differential. In other words, we don't get it in June, we get it in July or August. Now, if we don't get it at all and we were promised that is what is a red flag we need to jump on. And then let's see here, where I need a bigger font here, I think. And then total expense was a little bit over budget, about 24,000. So that's what caused the increase in the loss. And let's see, what was? See if I can pick that out real quickly. You can. It's down here. Oh, building improvement. Building improvement expense of 18,000 was not in the budget, so that was why the expense went up just a little bit higher. And while I'm on here, the building improvement expense line is when the contractor's work is done and we've paid the invoice in cash. Now, for the last couple years, I think per Bookkeeping Plus, everything going into that line has been pretty much ESSER money. Maybe almost all, or maybe not all.
So, yes and no, I should say that.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on if it's part of the ground improvements or the building improvements. So we've had a lot go in due to the HVAC, which notice you were sitting here at the beginning of July.
And that was ESSER money funded by that.
Yes.
Yep.
So we had ESSER for that, but we've also used our capital projects grants and some of like CFIG and things like that. Most of the money that you would have seen for the 23-24 fiscal year is actually capital projects grants, a lot less of the ESSER. A lot of the ESSER expenses that we had for the 23-24 school year were with our supplies and some other curriculum and some personnel parts. And so now ESSER is done. We have spent the last dime, penny.
Yep.
So moving forward to that one.
Okay. I guess the reason I bring that up again, kind of an educational note here, which I try to do because we have a massive numbers and it's confusing, and we try to learn every meeting how to better interpret these numbers. But you know, often it is the building improvements line that is causing that budget variance. And you look at that and you say, oh my gosh, why we spend a lot more money? Well, yes and no. If it is funded, anything in that line will be a depreciable asset that goes on the balance sheet. And what we'll have to look at now with ESSER gone is anything that is entered there. If we're paying for it ourselves out of cash, then that is an expense. But if it is being funded by a grant of some kind or some way or donation or whatever, then really it's a red herring as far as budget analysis goes. And that can, you have to learn to identify those budget red herrings, or else this stuff just is a big mess in trying to interpret. Well, let me go on to July here. Let's see here. Okay, on the other sheet, now, we don't have too much to talk about with July. You can see the July cash net income. We did have a loss again of about 142,000. The loss means that our operating income was not able to cover our operating expenses completely. Therefore, we have to take it out of our, some would call it a cash reserve or cash on hand or cash balance. That's basically what that figure means. And it did take our ending cash balance at the end of July down to $650,924. Now, interestingly, if you look at the accrual numbers, it was showing a big month, $551,554. Again, that's the difference between these two accounting methods. One books everything when it's earned, either income coming in earned or expenses earned, not when cash is received or paid. We're on a cash basis on our budget, so that's about all that there really is to this accounting, the two accounting methods here. Let's see. Watch it here. I get off on these side issues and I lose my train of thought, which seems to be happening every time I have a birthday. I seem like I do that more often.
I'm sure there's no correlation.
Is there? Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I just had one in August. So, okay. Now, in looking at our cash flow spreadsheet, here's how you have to interpret the numbers. When you go to the end of the year, the first column, I don't have a copy of that out here, it says projected year end. Well, that's our figure that we always use. That is, every month we pick up actual numbers and we look at what we still had budgeted out, and we've told Bookkeeping Plus that if we're way off the mark, either for better or worse, in other words, if it's a material thing, go ahead and change that out in the future for us. So then that gives us that column that says projected year end. Now, the next column needs a little bit of an explanation. It makes reference to computed on the basis of detailed something. I don't have that in front of me. I can't remember the exact wording. What that means is that let me explain it a different way here. You can see that there's three different income, expense, net loss for the next school year figures there. The last one is the budget that we approved in May. And that doesn't appear anywhere on the cash flow spreadsheet. This was the May 31st budget, and it showed us making a slight net cash profit of $6,304. Okay, now, because of the timing mismatches that we've had, the problem, as you all know, because we debated this endlessly for several months, if we could not vote on a budget that showed a bottom line loss, even if the loss really wasn't an economic or real loss. And so what Bookkeeping Plus has done for us is they basically put in an income carry forward on the $519,000 facility grant that we got in last April, but we're not going to be spending all of it until this current year. So basically, what that carry forward did was it allowed us to achieve a balanced budget. Now, that doesn't appear on our cash flow spreadsheet. However, what does is the second column that I have labeled 24-25 budget on a cash basis, and I think the wording is something about was based on details or something like that. You can peruse that later. Anyhow, what that is that's what the budget that we voted on that had that carry forward, or you could call it unearned revenue if it was an accrual set of numbers. It's the same thing. It just netted that effect, that distorting effect out to permit us to vote on a balanced budget. Okay, so that second column there where it shows a $513,692 loss, that's what the budget would have looked like if we had voted on it and it was prepared on a pure cash, accurate cash basis. Well, nobody's going to want to vote on that for sure, because it looks bad, but you can't go by looks sometimes. You have to delve into what the numbers really represent. So we're thinking now that we're not going to end up with a $514,000 loss. Looks like about $381,000, which is not great. But at any rate, that's where we think we stand. Now, also not so great is our ending cash balance is projected to be $411,906, which is a little low by historic standards. If we had approved a negative $500,000 cash budget, that would have taken us down to about $279,000. So anyhow, that is the biggest thing to explain about July's numbers, is you have to read our cash flow statement, those total columns, you have to read and interpret them just a little differently. Now, what I did in my report, and I almost regret I did it because it was messier than I thought it was going to be. I took the 3 budget versions, and you can look at it at your own leisure, and I worked them down, income, expense, and I proved that they're basically equivalent, except for how we handled the grant money received this year spent in the next year. So if anybody has any question about, well, wait a minute, what are you guys doing with your budget here? I would tell them, look at that, because I can pretty much demonstrate that there were no changes in almost every single account from the original budget we voted on, save how we handled that 519. Hopefully, no, it's not really an issue with anybody, but I did want to address that just in case. Now, then we have some other figures. Again, I need to hurry through this here. We track substitute expense. We're going to try to call it 87. We're looking at 87,780. I don't know if we're going to make that or not, given we had 133 last year. We're looking at a very good net health insurance premiums, 325,000. That's a very good number. And our TPA expenses look like might be a little higher than original, maybe 56,000 versus the 52,000. We talked about that. Currently, based on just the month of July, our debt coverage ratio is 1.27, just a hair over the required. But again, you can't put, that's a cumulative, and it goes up and down. And if we have some big shortfall in June, you might not make it, and you think, you go through looking at those positive numbers the whole year, and that may give you false comfort. But at any rate, we've talked about that many, many times here. And then below there, if you want to know what actually happened in July, it says July was originally budgeted to show a net cash loss of $263,000, but we managed to cut it to $142,000. Let's see why. Well, total income came in at $73,000 over budget, led by Title I, $52,700. That's sort of like that $50,000 carry forward I think we said we were carrying over. And then also we finally got $15,000 from our first received payment on the secured safety grant. And at the same time, total expense came under budget by $49,000. So that allowed us to drop the loss a little bit. And then again, for those that want or need the detail on why these numbers, why we have a loss, why we don't have, it's all in my report. It's all in the board financials. Feel free to peruse that at your leisure. That's all I'm wore out. That's all I've got here. I hope that Bookkeeping Plus, anything else we need to add or correct or clarify, or any other questions about something I haven't covered?
Covered everything.
Oh, okay, thank goodness.
All right.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. All right, can we get a motion to approve the finances as were presented tonight in the Board Treasury Report in June 2024 and July 2024 financials?
I'll make it.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Bookkeeping Plus. Appreciate all your services as always. And have a good rest of your day. Thank you. All right, new business. Next thing on the agenda here is 2024-2025 Teacher Appreciation Grant Policy Approval.
Yes. So I will say, Portable has done this new update, so apologies on some of this. Instead of, once I publish our meeting as a live meeting, anytime I add a document to it previously, like 4 weeks ago, it would just go out to you. Now there's a new button that says publish update, so every time I add a file, I have to push the publish updates. So apologies on that, but you should have all of it as is now, in theory. So Teacher Appreciation Grant, this is through the Department of Education. The grant is just the policy is just a renewal from our previous policies. We do have to submit this by September 13th to the Department of Ed. They check it for all of their wording that they've said, please put in your policy. And so this is really the only thing that has changed from last year to this year is I changed the school year dates and board approval by. For those of you who need a refresher on this, Teacher Appreciation Grant, that is the amount is determined by the Department of Ed, and there is a 25% differential between highly effective teachers and effective teachers by the grant. They did, going into the 23-24 school year, change the definition. Previously, we were not allowed to give a Teacher Appreciation Grant to somebody that was on the emergency permit or in one of those new alternate routes to licensure that hadn't quite completed it. But given the teacher shortage and how all of that works, they did change that wording. So we adopted that last year, and our policy pretty much mirrors that again this year. So teachers would really appreciate it if you would review this policy and approve it. And as a reminder, the state sends us money for that in around November, and we have to have it out within 20 days for receipt.
Now, I was thinking last year, weren't we granted 35 if we could find enough to qualify to hit that amount? I think we got a little, like 32, 33, paid in December, I think.
Yeah, somewhere
something
in that
around
range,
that.
yeah.
So it'd probably be about that same range next year, yeah.
I think so.
Do we have, I didn't find any document on that, and that's because you said it didn't change except for the dates?
Well, it's in Boardable, it's just now pushed out to you.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
I can pull it up now, it's out here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for that.
Yeah, the only thing that's changed
Okay.
is the dates, and to make it easier, say, they make me name it something odd with dots. So basically it says that this will be renewed annually, and that will submit to DOE by the 15th of September. The term teacher includes a professional person whose position the school corporation, SPED co-op, CTE, SPED program, a lot of different other parts. Their primary responsibility is instruction of students. The term license refers to a document issued by IDOE that grants permission to serve as a particular kind of teacher. The term includes any certificate or permit issued by IDOE. And so that was the change going into last school year, where they allowed some of those alternative permits to work. So for us, we follow that to meet the state's guidelines. Primary responsibility is the instruction of students. They receive highly effective or effective, and they were employed on December 1st of the school year that the grant money is received. So if they were with us previously and they left coming into August, they are not eligible for the grant monies through APA. They also kind of skip a year because the other corporation typically doesn't pay that out as well. For us, to all effective teachers, a stipend is determined by the superintendent, which really is determined by the spreadsheet calculation. And then highly effective, they get 25% more than the stipend given to effective teachers, which is what the statute says to do. And then within 20 business days of distribution date by IDOE, we will send it out to teachers.
Yep.
And that's one of those emails that I watch for like a hawk, and I'm trying to get it calculated so that as soon as it hits our bank account, we can get it out. My goal is to get it while our teachers are still doing some Christmas shopping so that there's a little extra help there. But we're always at the mercy of the Department of Ed and Finance.
I'm thinking we didn't get quite as much as we could have last year. Is that correct, or no? Okay, I'm incorrect.
No,
on
we
that.
always have to go off an estimate because they have a general allocation for that in the biennial budget. They do it typically with a per pupil amount, but then they adjust it every year. So whatever we budget is typically an estimate of what we think it might be. Usually we're a little bit
Now,
off.
not all teachers that meet the, let's say, the APA, having been at APA, the number of years necessary will get anything, right? Is it a select group, or?
So what APA does, and I don't know where other school corporations stand on this, but we always budget more for bonuses, and every winter we give a bonus to every employee, including the instructional aides as well as non-licensed area teachers. So with our military science, for example, they would not qualify under this teacher appreciation grant because that's a non-licensed
But they're still an
thing.
outstanding teacher, and we want to recognize, yes.
So APA as a school, we give as much as we can. We give a pretty close to equivalent of what they would have gotten had they been using the state monies. So that is something that has been very near and dear on that for a long time, to make sure that everybody gets something. So
I make a motion that we approve the 24-25 teacher appreciation grant policy.
I'll second.
Motion and second, further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that. That is approved. So hope the teachers appreciate that.
oh, I'm sure they will.
Yes.
I'll just go on a limb. They say thank you a lot.
Next thing we have on the agenda is the the Madison County Health Department for the emergency Narcan, Epi, and Albuterol policy.
Yes. So this was a surprise gift that arrived last week, where Madison County Health Department dropped off some Narcan for both of our buildings. I said, hey, we'll send you a policy in a little bit. They also have issued standing orders for EpiPen orders for each building, as well as emergency albuterol. With the Narcan, they did send a policy that does include training, procedures, and things of that nature. For Epi and albuterol disbursement, they were less instructive in what they sent us. Now, if you look at the standing orders that they sent us for the Epi and albuterol, it does have some of the same type of procedures that were included with the Narcan procedures, but it is less helpful than what the other parts were. And when they sent us a follow-up on that, because I would really like to know all the parameters for when to use Epi on someone if you don't know that they have any allergies or things. What they sent was a document that included basically what to do if someone had a bad reaction to a vaccine. So the Narcan policy is the one that I actually put forward to you. I also I left the Epi and the albuterol on our agenda, but did not send those policies out because they did not feel like we were ready for that, to be able to safely administer that. I do know we have medical people on the board, so thinking we could probably get some help to make sure that those policies are something that we could actually use in a school and know as trained personnel how to do this. But the Narcan, their policies, procedures were very clear for us.
Hopefully they didn't think we might actually need to use a lot of it.
Well, and that's one of the things, it's the irony of this is I received an email Friday about noon or so from one of our employees, Mark Dixon, our IT director, said, hey, I wanted to kind of put this out there. My nephew is a junior at Batesville, and they have Narcan next to every AED they have in their school. They had a kiddo overdose on fentanyl, and they were able to save him because they had quick access to Narcan in their high school. And he goes, so is this something maybe APA? Because I'm like, well, it's actually on the board agenda, because literally the health room just said, here, have some. So hopefully we never actually need it, but
Well, even having it for events,
yes.
Yeah,
that's, you know.
but you don't know who's in the audience.
But we only get 2 doses, is that what was given to us?
So that was gonna
Right
be
now.
my question
Yes.
is,
Yeah.
where is these located? One, is there some outsider being to have access also to our sports facilities too? And what's kind of the process with that?
So currently they're not located anywhere,
Okay,
because we didn't want to start putting them up or do anything
Okay.
with them until we actually know further information. So having the actual policy there,
uh-huh,
with the standing orders, we can ask to order more, but I think we'll probably need to do either some fundraising donation or something so that we can get enough that are in all of the locations that we would need. One of my challenges with this is they've come out with, AED, basically I'll say regulations that you need to be able to get to an AED and back within 3 minutes, right? And we have more than covered that area, but only having 2 doses of Narcan per building, that is not gonna be within that 3 minute.
Right.
And, in an AED situation, obviously every second counts. Narcan, every half a second counts, more so because once you're too far, you're too far.
so I know, as you mentioned, we have a couple medical experts, on our board here. I think that'd be an opportunity to have a conversation and put something together with the 3 of y'all, to at least have a conversation about, review the policies and bring it up in another board meeting or two, and we can review it.
So,
Yeah.
just a question about training, I guess, what is that
Yeah.
gonna look like,
And who is part of that
and
also?
who's gonna do that?
Yeah, is it teachers or is it administrative, or they just put
I
out to
mean,
anyone?
honestly, with this, just the way that they're describing it, needs to be every single person that works at APA.
That's what I was thinking, because
Mhm.
you don't know who's gonna be the closest to that person.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that is something, Friday, we just spent doing safety. The whole PD day was about all of our safety procedures and those things. But, I mean, we're all required to be AED CPR certified, and we know this is a direction kind of society is dealing with right now. We're gonna have to add Narcan to the mix because
I would like to think that during the school year, we wouldn't have any issues, or during class time.
right.
But again, today's society, you never know what's going on.
Not to have any would not be
Right.
very wise, let's say.
Well, I think one of the challenges that a lot of people are facing, at least at a school scenario with this, is the fentanyl, right?
Yeah,
Where, not any of our kids, I'm sure, but if you are buying like
Just
street
never
Xanax, or, oh, this is just,
Never know.
here, I forgot to take my ADHD medicine, oh, here's my ADHD medicine, right? Sometimes our kids are too loving and sharing. We never know if that was accidentally mixed with something else or purposely done. I don't believe that our kids would be here purposely giving
Right,
something like
but-
that, but they don't know their sources all the time either.
No,
So,
like an EpiPen, like kid is allergic to peanuts in the cafeteria, can they give that or use that themselves? Could their neighbor use it?
with an
or-
EpiPen, yes, most of our kiddos that would be that severe carry their
Right.
own. Same with the albuterol, they would carry those with them. And
Yeah, as for asthma,
Yeah.
yep.
some cases they can self-administer, but they would have to be really, really fast
Mm.
at that. And so having like adults nearby that can grab and basically grab, stab, that's
support it.
right. Like that's the epi part, right? We're trained on that part. Oop,
Yeah.
stab, hold.
Now, the Narcan would only be a qualified, designated individual to
No.
administer it, or could be anybody?
Given the severity and the very small window that you would have to administer Narcan, it would have to be every single adult and possibly our high school students and middle school students.
You know, if
learning
somebody's
these things.
dying, you gotta move quick, you know,
Honestly,
but
yeah, I think that
regs or
even
no regs.
having everybody trained in that regarding the students, because even if the student is outside of our area and something were to happen, because that's going to happen. I mean, they're going to be exposed to it. Them knowing that and having the safety or security in themselves to be able to administer it.
Yeah, and there are some places, if you, even driving around Anderson, when we worked at the Gaslight Festival 2 weekends ago, a weekend ago.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, we were there. Drove by a church, they have an external Narcan just on the side of their building where, you know, it's an emergency, get it and go. And it's not like, I assume you can't do much more with Narcan than what it's intended for, right? It's not a pleasant experience for anyone involved, but yeah, I think, you know, if we want to table that and have medical experts work through that, I think that would be fantastic, because it is one of those things. Just got to remind everybody, English degree here, not a medical background, but unfortunately in education, we're having to become more and more medically trained in a lot of cases.
Agree.
So.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. Table this and have conversation with our medical experts. Come back with some findings, reports. I would like to see also how many more we may need in the store. In the school to see what do we need to fund or grant write or find other opportunities, because you know if we can save a kid's life like that, that's very valuable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And adults as well.
And adults as well. Yeah.
So.
Now, if we have these medical experts available on our board, can they check and see what's wrong with our shoulders or our knee or?
I feel like you gotta make an appointment and then.
I just want to see what their area of expertise might be there, right?
All right. Thank you for that. All right, next thing on the agenda is the school calendar proposals for 2025, 26, 27, 27, 28, and 28 and 29. 4 years in a row.
Sorry, I got really efficient.
Yeah, you did.
It was,
there you go.
Hit the buttons, roll it over, roll it over.
Yes.
But honestly, it was to help plan proms.
Oh, okay.
But we also, we're running into a new challenge, which is not part of these calendars. But given the way that the calendar has rolled over, which made this feel like the shortest summer ever, it also now puts the baseball sectional championship right on our typical graduation. So we had to kind of work through that. We have put out a survey to our stakeholders about what they would prefer on these things, so we've got our date for that now. But while we were going through how do we problem solve this, I said let's just roll the calendar over and over and over, see where we're at. So I figured, hey, we might as well go ahead and get them approved, get them posted, and then everybody can plan for the next 4 years of their lives.
I assume this includes the holidays and the breaks and all this stuff, because I know they shift all the years and everything in that as well too.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I must confess, I've gone through
around
all this.
elections.
Elections as
I
well.
looked through parts of it.
Yeah. I know in the past, we said that we did try to coordinate as best possible with Anderson Community and Liberty or anybody else in town. We do have a lot of families that have kids in multiple schools, let's say. Is that the same? Does it mesh with them reasonably well?
It should mesh with them because they roll their calendars over similar to ours. There have been a couple challenges. One of the things that we encountered when we called Anderson to find out when their graduation is, because we really don't want to put ours on the same day as theirs, so, you know, respectful of everybody. They actually were not able to provide us this year's graduation dates yet. So as far as I know, these should roll over very comparable to where theirs are. We do one of the same things they do is basically like that third full week in October starts fall break and those things. So they've got a lot of rules of thumb there that, you know, we just follow with ours as well. So. And of course, there can always be amendments to things.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna ask if you know, something happens with it being so far in advance, if we can adjust it as we go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This just gives us some planning, jumping off points as well as for the families, right? Where we know probably spring break, fall break are not going to be things that we would have to change in the future anyways. So one of the questions that I typically get on my fall break are from our staff members getting ready to rebook for their next fall break. Hey, can you remind me what dates this is for next year? I'm like, oh boy. So this might save on some of that.
Putting it out there, yeah.
Now, could any day, like for instance, like if we have a bunch of snow, can it be turned into an e-learning day and then count as a day of attendance? How does that e-learning throw into things? Or can you only have so many e-learning days? I'm just curious.
Depends on what kind of school you are. So yes, all of the above. Because we're a public charter and Ball State actually dictates how many school calendar days we have. Yes, we actually can do weather e-learning days or, an eclipse, I don't know, space weather, possibly e-learning days, whatever we did there. And so I know that there have been put out where like public schools can only have, I think, 3 maybe. We are exempt from that because Ball State dictates how many we have or can have. And they've not chosen to really take much of a position on that other than looking at our calendars ahead of time and then those things. We ran into an issue 2 years ago where I can't remember why we had to close. Something in May, maybe mechanical failure or something.
The flooding?
Might have been flooding. We've had a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But we actually only went 179 days, and instead of having Department of Ed waive it, we just had to email Ball State saying, we can't operate it safely. Can we cut this? Because nobody's coming in after Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
I think it would be one thing if it was a pattern and it was something that, an abusive case of taking advantage of that.
Yes. Typically, we are within range when we're supposed to
Yeah,
be.
the winters have been much milder, it seems like here.
Oh, Dave, you had to say this. That's like saying it's been quiet
I don't wanna
in
jinx you.
the
just jinxed us.
I don't think we will, but
Oh, no.
Oh, that's all
they
right.
can't be as bad as they were back in the 70s and 80s, early 80s.
Do we need to vote on these then and
Yeah.
approve them?
Yeah, we're going, we get a motion to approve the school calendar proposals as presented for all 4 years.
I'll make an motion to approve the school calendars for the 4 years.
I'll second.
Motion second, further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That school calendars have been approved for the next 4 years.
Man, I'm working ahead on today.
Quick
I'm gonna win some
question,
brownie
Mr.
points.
Chairman, did we approve our minutes yet?
Yes. Yeah, we did.
Okay. Must have missed
Approval minutes
that.
by Daly and Johnson.
Okay. So I guess, mentally prepping for my TR report. I guess was zoned out temporarily,
Fair.
so sorry about that.
Next thing is discussion of board officer elections. Typically, we have these board officer elections every 2 years. I haven't heard any conversations and any changes or anyone has reached out to me at all. I know they're up for due, so it's one of those we can put in discussion or have a more of a vote or such if anyone's interested in any of the board officer of positions such as chair, vice chair, treasurer, secretary, excuse me. We can have that vote, I guess I could say next meeting from that if anyone is thinking about that or if anyone is not at all and staying at status quo, we can have that discussion as well there too, kind of moving forward from there. But typically that's every 2 years for those positions and seats.
Now, is all 4 positions then open? Are they all
Yes.
synchronized, I guess?
Yeah, synchronized for that, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, for that. So I haven't heard anything. If anyone is interested in those, reach out to me directly so I can put those into status quo and get those into conversation next.
Well, I try to get these 2 guys to do the treasurer's report tonight. Listen, I'm giving you a real lifetime opportunity here. They turned me down.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you, they're gonna say, hey, there's some spreadsheets, there's some numbers, there's some cash in the bank.
We're
Good job, guys, let's go scam
It's in the green, we're good.
Hey, money went our
Yeah.
bank accounts last week, we're good.
All right. All right, any other discussion regarding that at all? Okay. Next, all right. Does anyone have any other further discussion about anything else? All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll call the meeting at 7:10 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for everyone who attended this evening and who was online as well there too. We appreciate it. And we'll see you at the next board meeting scheduled for Tuesday, October 1st here at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.